Hi, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Daniel Gregersen. I've been working with SAP integration for 15 years, starting with XI, PI, PO, and cloud integration. In this webinar, I'll show you a little about how you can actually improve the speed of your delivery and your integration work. Last week I did a webinar where I talked a lot about all the changes that are happening, and one of the key things that I definitely see is we as integration developers need to run a lot faster, and there's a lot of things that we need to take into account for this to happen. So one of the things that is happening, or I can see, is that the speed of integration is does also include a lot of the change management side, and I can definitely see when working at various clients this part varies, but there's always some here, and that has impact on how fast you can develop, and obviously meeting stuff like that. But I cannot fix everything, but at least the change management, this is what this webinar is about, how we can actually optimize that part. Obviously, if you wanted to develop faster, as I just said, you could probably just skip the change management. And if that is an option for you, I guess you can just skip it and continue. But I guess it's really a hard sell in most organizations to ensure, well, we don't want to do any change management. We think we are good as it gets. So yeah, in this I assume you want to do some change management, and it's about finding the correct level of change management. So when we look at the development process, whether it's an agile, waterfall approach, it all contains these kind of steps. And so first off, you want to figure out what is it that you really want to develop, how can you develop it, possibly using something like the ESM methodology and stuff like that. Then you're going to develop it, you're creating all the message mappings and interfaces and everything around it. Then you want to test it to validate that it works. You want to document that it works on your, document what you have developed and the reason why, so people at a later stage would be able to figure out what's going on. You want to transport it through your landscape, and once you have transported to your QA system, you want to validate that it works. Once you're going live, you also want to do a validation that this actually works as it is. And then you want to be able to do support on it, and you want to support all the different interfaces that you're running in a smooth way. So before we get started, I just want to take a look into the future. So imagine that 2 years from now that someone asks about, why did you make this change to this HR interface? And you are just going to be sitting there and thinking, well, maybe I can find the service request for it. If you're still there, if there's someone else, it's going to be even more challenging. So this could be because of an audit that want to do this. It could be a bug that you're seeing, that something strange, a mistake, or possibly even fraud. And you want to find that what's the reason why we changed this interface at that point in time. You will then get asked to fix some things around this. So what was actually changed in this request? So if someone asks you to do a change to your banking interface, you want to ensure that you fix the problem first, and then you want to develop a good solution for registering what are the objects that you have changed, what are the parameters, and there's obviously some challenges that you cannot do full version comparison, but you don't want to write all the changes that you have done, because then it's just going to be humongous, and you will not really be able to find anything in your big pile of paper that is going on. So you want to find the right level of data that you have, so it's automated and you get whatever is needed. That is one of the reasons that with the Figaf IRT tool that you're able actually to automate your change management. So with change management, we're actually thinking about the full concept from you have developed message mapping to you have tested it on development, moved it to your QA system, tested it in there, and do support on these things. So we've created an object that we call a ticket. On a ticket, you can add all the different PI objects that you have: operation mappings, message mapping, directory objects, and all of these are linked together to just one object. Or to one ticket that you can then link to your ServiceNow, Jira, or whatever you're using to handle all your support cases. And then obviously test it, because we're coming from a testing application framework, so testing is really important for us. So let me just give you a short idea about what it is that I see for these things. So here we have the IRT application. It's a standalone Java application that you can start on your laptop and go into the URL, or in productive settings, you would install it on a server, give it a database, and give users access to it. So I have just done some changes, and let me just show you that. So I can see here that there are some changes that's just done on a salary interface. So that seems a bit interesting. So let me just see what's actually being changed here. So let's check. So we can see all the different links from above and below this one. We can see the operation map, we can see the iCode and the iFlow connected to it. So let me just check what are the versions here. So what's being changed, we can see for message mappings. We want to check the internal payload of this, so we can actually see that there was a new element that was added, that was the total for this section, and we can see all the different information about it in here. So we say, okay, that's probably okay. And because I developed this, I know this is okay. So I will click these two. I also have the data type that's linked to this change of adding an extra field. So I want to create a ticket now. And I already got a service request number. I'm normally just used like this. Service request, and this is add total. We can add a transport number if we want. We can say that this is a service request. We can say we are in progress, that so we can specify a lot of things about what we're actually done. So now we can see this, we can see the objects that we have. We can then see, do we have any test cases for this? And we can actually see there's quite a few test cases for this, but the one I would be interested in is the one from the two HR ones we have. So let's try to add them. We can then run this, and it links to some of the other objects for this. So we can then go to our testing template. So a testing template is the place that we have created all the different tests around. So let's just run this. And some of these test cases are just created, others are older ones, but let's see what's going on here. So we can check our last results. So we can actually see there's one here, an error. Let's actually see what was going on here. Sorry, that was one. So I need to click this one, view results. So we can see that these were compared, they were an error. And what was the reason for this error? Oh, this was the timestamp. I guess that is okay. So what we can actually do is just click add a timestamp, and the next time we run it, we will not see this as an error. But I think maybe the other one is an older test case. So that one is not working. And we can view the results. We can view it in the monitor, and I just need to replace. We can see what was going on with this. So we've got direct links for it. And there was some part of an HR problem here, some message, and I guess that was just because we had some wrong values into the data. So we can say that this is probably okay, and we want to delete this test case. This is no longer valid, or this one. So this actually show you that you can test this. We could also, if we had this installed on other system, this scenario, once we have implemented to production or to test or QA, we could run the same test, and with this it would actually figure out what are the different scenarios I need to run on that interface. So this makes it just in one cockpit. You got all the different information that is required for you to do your development, do the change management of these tickets. So you can see we have all the information here that we need in one place, and if we're then going back to our object, we can then see that these objects have a ticket assigned, so we actually know that someone have worked on it, and we can see the ticket and what are the information on. So with all our different versions, we can see that someone has claimed and say, I've done this for this specific reason. So this is really powerful when you're trying to document what's going on without spending too much time on it. So I mentioned that we want to do testing of these things, and I think, so obviously that depends on the status of this, but I think the best way for if you already have a PI system running is to get the data from your productive system, because that is where you know we got all the correct data, we got information about what's going on, let's get them data from there. And what the ERT application is then able to do is to log onto your PI or production system, download a lot of test data, and then you can run them through your development system, making sure that nothing has changed. And this is really valid when you're doing a migration, or if you're doing an upgrade of your PI system. Then you want to be able to send a lot of documents through that covers all of the different areas of your application, because a lot of time when I've done testing upgrades in the past, it's just been, well, let's just try to send one IDOC and hope that catches all the errors. And I've seen a lot of the errors where it's like, well, there was some specific thing that was not working in this area because the message mapping functionality changed, and that is what we want to be able to catch. Are there anything that is abnormal compared to what we did earlier? But obviously there's some test data that's changing, like timestamp, like dates, and you want to be able to ignore them. We want to automate the processing a lot if possible, and I've just been putting a lot of the logic in that I've seen, well, when we're doing these things, so this needs to be automated, then we have added that. And there's a lot of different ways that you can test with. So we have two ways of testing. The one is to add a module to your processing, and with that module we're able to download the test methods, run them, and validate how it works. The other approach is to use the standard SP logging, and based on that figure out how we can actually handle the data. So we would send the standard data, or we'll use the module. So either if you have configured on the ICO level, then we can use that information, or if you have a module on, then we want to test with your module. So it enables to support that. We are able to compare a lot of different formats: EDIFACT, X12, XML, JSON, binary, and we have a way to anonymize the data that you have. And then there's a manual upload. If you have done a migration, then you can download the test data from your legacy system and upload it, and in that way validate that it works as you expect it to. But let me show you how easy it actually to create a test case. So we have a scenario here. So we have these. these 5, let's just record some messages for this. So we will create a new template. And we want 3 messages for each. We want to have a way that we can so if you, for instance, have a lot of different messages, EDI messages that comes from different partners, you want to be able to say, okay, if you got 2,000 messages for one partner and 3 for another, you probably want to figure out that at least we are covering as many different partners as possible with the test. So we want to have a way we can specify the data in a lot easier format. We have synchronous, so we would support that in different formats. But here in the partner, we can specify an XPath to partner data in this document. So we can then create the request. We will then start our recording, and this will validate if we need to add the ERT modules to your system, and send a request that will then say it will record the next 3 messages being processed on this. If we use the SAP approach about logging messages, you would also be able to see it. It would be a little different approach. You'd be able to fetch historical data. Let me just get this one started. So we got here stop. So now I've sent some messages through, and as we can see here, it is then populating these fields instantaneously. These others are just giving some problems. So then we can say we want to create test cases on this. We want to create the test cases. We want to run our test cases. And this will then take the message, use the XI30 protocol, send them into the message processing, and we will then be able to see what are the status of this. We can see actually here the partner number as we specified, all are with the same partner number. And we have the option of, when we have a test case, of saying we just want 3 messages for each of the different partners that we have. So we can look at our report here. We can see what are the specific errors that have occurred. So we can view our differences here. We can see, okay, it's the date that is different. So that's okay. So we just say add. And the next time we run it, we will not see any problems with this. So that is actually the flow for creating test cases in most scenarios. But you would also have scenarios where you have some confidential data, like a salary info. So here we have the Figaf salary info, and let's just try to add it to the same one, if I can find it. So here we have it. We just want to have 1 salary, not 2 salary information. We're a big company now. So we'll create a new test case for this. So we will start the recording. So this will start our recording, and I just need to So now we have started recording. I've sent some messages through. Oh well. So we can see here we're getting 1 message and 1 outbound message for this scenario. So we want to create a new test case for this. Create a test case. And then we can see our link. So now it says, hey, we can still get some more of these data if we need to. Now we want to check this one out. So we can have a look at the data here. So we've created a data anonymization part. and this is really simple to use. So let me just delete this one. So for instance here, if we have our salary information, obviously employee number is kind of confidential. We have removed all the other fields, so I simply just by clicking on it, we can specify with an XPath and obviously all the different escapes and stuff like that if you wanted to. And then we have some different functions that we can actually use for this. So we can either say multiply it by some number and how many decimals. So if we have this number, what would be the result of this? But for this one, I know that all our employees start with 12 and then 2 digits. So we can just test what that would generate, something like that. That seems okay. So with that, we can see the expected output of the message here instantaneously. We can see the differences and how it works. We can also see that we've just changed the salary. I want something in the same range, but obviously not the same value. So we're just multiplying by a random number. And as you can see here, we have created some usernames, but in the next release, we'll actually be able to give you values from a table. So it's a lot easier to handle these things. So we'll just create an anonymization template. This was done. And then when we are going back to our list of test cases, we can see we got one here that says anonymized. And what we can actually do is we can then run this default anonymized. We would run this, and this will then give an error because we don't have any we don't know what the output is because it's kind of difficult understanding what the mapping is. So it's just easier to send the message through, get our testing result, and when we view the result, we can see there's an error. If we look at the difference, the whole document is new. So what we'll do is we will just mark this as test case. And then we see we got a new one here. We can run this, and then we would expect that this one is giving us an okay result back. So this is, it does require some work, but you don't have to do any manual interventions. And from a user perspective, this is really nice because, yeah, you just have one cockpit to do all of the different steps in, and you can validate that it works. So that was just our way of testing anonymized data. You have a way you can upload data from a migration project. And with this, you can either do regression testing whenever something has... So if you want to change, for instance, a user-defined function, that is one of the things that you are really never allowed to do in a normal PI environment because you don't really know where this is used. With this, and together with the ticket functionality, we're actually able to find out this user-defined function or user-defined library is used in all of these different message mapping. Just run them all, and you can see what's going good or bad in it. Then we talked about being able to transport these things is quite important. In SAP, you would use Charm or something like that to configure all of the different objects together. Once you have imported it into your test system, you want to be able to say, okay, I have imported this transport, and then say run test on my QA system. And this was actually almost like I just show here. You can just say run on a specific test system. Now I haven't set this up on any other system, but here I can actually run this on that specific system, and that's not working because it's not there. So this is really a simple way of handling the transportation of it. Next is we want to do documentation, and I think what we have here gives a good indication of what you have actually done, because you got the service request, you can put in all the different description you have. together with a link of who had to your service desk application, then it makes it really useful to see what was changed when. And with this, you can go into more detail about all the different objects that was changed. The next feature we'll add is we will enable you to export the ticket functionality. So you can actually see that these were the objects, these were the tests that are run, and this was the result of this. And I think one of the next functionalities after that is a Word documentation of your PI scenario. And the crucial thing we'll be adding is a change history, because a lot of times when I've done documentations, like it says initial version and no one really knows if it's actual or not. With this, you would be able to generate new documents at the fly with all the information required. And then obviously you want to go live. Some would argue that it would be useful to have a prayer to do that. I'm not at the point where I would be able to say whether or not this is a good thing or not, but how it will work. But I guess it never hurts to do a prayer. At least it'll take you 15 seconds, and you would hope that it's going better. But then obviously once you're live, you want to hope that you hope that everything will work until you're gone at the project. But if something goes wrong, as it always would be, you would probably see that there's some errors that occur, and we can see there's actually this one in here. And let's just try this one. So we can see that there was a root cause. We're getting all of the information here. So this is HR interface. And this was because I had anonymized the data wrongly, so I'd used a wrong decimal. So we'll say, okay, we cannot really do anything about this, so we just want to cancel this message. And then we actually want to create a rule for it. So next time that we're seeing anything like this, we just want to automate that response. So the subject is we can specify hi. We can put in content from the payload, so we can get all the different information in here. So this is, and you can then send you to either the service desk or a specific user. So if it's the business that is using, they know that on purchase order something, or when you're creating a purchase order, they need to fill in some specific information. And if your mapping fails because the phone number is not filled in, you can actually just send this directly to the user, say do nothing about it or cancel the process, the criticality of it. And then you can just test that it works, and then you can save it. So now we have just created a new rule, really simple. And next time this error occur, you probably want to, so we're just using an XPath like in this one, so you probably want to say something like this, and you can test that it works. So this really makes it a lot easier, because you can document the things in here. You can put links to other cases where you know how to solve these things. So how do you actually get access to this? You can get access at figaf.com/IRT. It's free to use up to 10 ICOs and 10 iFlow. So we are also supporting CPI at the same way. So you can have a change log of all your different objects really the same way. Testing, the concept is a little different when we're doing it, but in general it has the same look and feel and user perspective. But obviously the CPI there, you're able to save a lot more different steps and run it in a different way, so it's a little more complicated. But from a user perspective, it's the same thing that you actually need to do. So this makes it really simple. You can try it out for free figaf.com/IRT. The system requirements. So you probably need a good laptop for it. A travel book is not okay, but an i5 should work. Good network connection, 3 gigabytes of free memory. And in most cases, if you got a user with OK access on your development system, you should be up and running in 30 minutes to half an hour. It's really simple. For productive setup, we're supporting commercial databases like Oracle, MySQL, DB2, and Postgres as the free one. I would recommend a server with minimum 8 gigabyte of memory, some disk space, and obviously a good CPU, depending on how many comparisons that you're using, because they would require a lot of CPU to do a comparison. So for the people on this webinar, I wanted to offer you a way to get started if you think that it seems a little complex. I want to just debunk that and say this is what we want to get you to do. So we're offering a free 1-hour call with our developers where you, together with them, would just say, install the application, get it up and running on your test system. And in most cases, you should be able to get test data, run the test data, and then you'll be able to see the tickets functionality, how it works, is the goal for this session. As before, Windows PC with some 3 gigabyte of RAM, good CPU, and obviously depend on version and so I would not recommend travel books or anything like that. But yeah. Java 8 should be installed, and then you should have admin access to a PI, or before the call you should just get a specific user for the ERT system, so you can use that one if you don't have enough access. But just before the session, or when you have scheduled, it will just send you the information that you just need to request. And then you need to decide, do we want to have the part where we're installing the ERT component, or do we just want to be doing the standard SAP logging? And at least for proof of concept, I think this makes most sense. It's not as fast, but it does cover a lot of the same areas. So if this is something you want, then send an email to support@figaf.com with information about you, what you want to achieve, and what's the current status of your system. And obviously we do have limited availability of this, so let us know if there's any when you wanna, then we'll try to see if we can schedule some time for this. Yes, thanks. Thanks for listening. I hope this was really helpful for you. Go check out the free version of the ERT tool. Contact support if you have any questions or comments. We are trying to answer as fast as possible because I think this is really something that makes your life a lot easier, getting to do these different kind of things. So thanks for listening.